Hey, welcome to the first of my audio video post of my blog post. Um, I came to realize that, everybody doesn't like to read stuff. Some of them like to watch it, some of them like to listen to it. So I'm gonna give you all three. So here we go. What I've learned about communication skills in relationships as an autistic person. It's not as hard as it sounds. Relationships. Typically, our first thought when we hear the word is towards the romantic variety. But the truth, for the autistic among us, is that they often haunt us in every corner of our lives, whether it be classroom or coworkers, neighbors, friends, what are those, family, and yes, even significant others. That is, if we're lucky enough to find someone who wants to give our quirks and idiosyncrasies a serious shot at love, or even like. I went to bed a while ago but couldn't sleep, so I came to my desk a little after midnight to see what things I've been procrastinating on the longest. Relationships popped to the top of the list, so I opened the Word doc that I had begun and found that it contained one word: relationships. I hadn't even come up with a concept. It was just an idea, and a vague one at that. How should I attack this piece? There are dozens of ways I could go. I stared at the page a moment longer, went to get a bottle of water, drank it in one long gulp, peed, then went back to the computer, and fully uninspired, hit shuffle on my writing playlist and closed my eyes. 2 seconds later, the eyes popped open. The magic of the playlist worked immediately, mostly based on a song about relationships by Canadian artist Zedd. The lyrics got my brain churning. Relationships are hard for a lot of us on the spectrum because we're very literal, black or white kind of thinkers. And relationships are not a black and white kind of thing. In fact, there's lots of gray in there. So much gray. Relationships are fluid. They rise and fall like the tide. They can become stagnant. They churn with strong emotions like Niagara Falls. And sometimes they seem to wind on endlessly like the Colorado or Mississippi rivers with no end in sight. Because I was out of high school more than a decade before they started diagnosing school-age kids as autistic as we know it today, I didn't get diagnosed until I was 46. That means I went more than 45 years as a neurodivergent, being forced and shoved into a neurotypical world because my only explanation as to why I was so weird, odd, and quirky was I didn't have an idea to offer. I couldn't tell my boss, or the one or two friends I might have at the time, or family, or a significant other, that my brain was on a slightly different frequency and that finding a common language between the two of us would really help us both out. I couldn't tell them because, as of yet, I had no clue. Even shortly after I was diagnosed, I don't think I could have told anyone the best way to communicate with me. It took about 8 more years of failed relationships of all types, successful ones of all types, and taking my literal black or white brain and crunching all the data so I could come up with some answers. And then I started slowly removing some of the rigidity from my life, which is hard when you're autistic. I started reshaping it like clay on a potter's wheel so I could turn it into what was needed at the moment. That's how I learned about relationships. Trial, error, success, analyzing what I could find. What I just took 524 words to get to you is this. No matter what type of relationship, it boils down to these three things: communication, honesty, trust. Those can be three very heavy words for many of us on the spectrum and for our loved ones as well. Communication is the key to the whole thing because you could easily fold honesty and trust into the communication aspect, and you definitely should. In the spirit of full disclosure, for the past 5-6 weeks, I've been slowly embarking on a romantic relationship with an amazing woman that I'll call Elle. Elle raised an adult daughter with Asperger's, the same diagnosis I have, so we already have a working understanding of the neurodivergent brain. From the beginning, we discussed the need for strong communication and never leaving a conversation without everything being answered. We also talked about the need for a special language or code between the two of us so we can communicate in a way that we both understand, even if those around us may be confused. We had one mostly developed in a couple of weeks. Keep in mind that these are principles not just in romantic relationships, but in other kinds of relationships as well. Complete honesty and complete trust need to be there from near the beginning as well, and once in place, cannot waver. One has to trust in the other and vice versa. What do you feel makes a good relationship? Tell us in the comments below, whether on Medium, on YouTube, or on the podcast channel. If you like what you read, please consider following me. It would make my day to know that there are others who enjoy my work. We will be back very soon with more blog posts, and please don't forget to follow Not Weird Just Autistic, notweirdjustautistic.medium.com, and you can go to notweirdjustautistic.com and find links to everything else. Have a great night.